Hello and welcome to the third and final segment of the three-part series covering Kallah teachers, conversations with the incredible women that help teach and frame the world of marriage to new brides. I'm Tova Khan, your host on the Out of Town podcast, and it is an absolute pleasure to finally have this episode out and in your hands. So let's go there.
Is there something that you feel is unique to Chabad that you teach that maybe some of us didn't grow up learning, like with our Kallah classes being outside Chabad?
I don't know if this is unique to Chabad, but it may be about how we focus on the inside of the person. So somebody that comes looking totally like, that this is never going to enter their lifestyle. And I just need the two ducks. I'm getting married in Israel. How quickly can we do this? See the neshama inside, right? The outside is just a costume. The outside is just the exterior. It's the same neshama. We both have the same piece of Hashem inside of us. And our Rabbeim have always stressed this. You're talking to their insides. You're talking to who they really are. Everything else is dress up. So this is very, very important to really tap in. We're very lucky because besides Chabad on campus, which I'm part of, and then we have for, past graduation, there's YJP, Young Jewish Professionals, where they are connected with Chabad Rabbi or Rebbitzin. But it has gone down from Chabad on campus. Then there was C-Teens, so they're hearing about mikvah when they have these C-Teen clubs from different Chabad houses. And Bas Mitzvah Club, which is also a Chabad thing, where they take these 11-year-olds to a mikveh. When I first heard, I'm like, what?
Really?
When I was in Camp Amuna many years ago, and I was a Chaya counselor, and we went to something called Chaya Prep, where we, were taught what to teach. And the rabbi, actually was just Nifta, Rabbi Metzger, alav shalom, he was giving us a class about intermarriage for these little kids in a frum camp. And of course, there was some kids who came from different backgrounds. And we looked at him like, what? And he says, the Rebbe said it's never too early to mention it. Kids today know more than you think they know. And if they hear it from very young, Jew marries a Jew, then it's going to stick. So yeah, when I heard that they're taking Bas Mitzvah kids to a mikveh, I ran a Bas Mitzvah club, but it was mostly for observant kids, so I did not take them to a mikveh, to be honest. But when I heard about it, I was like, wow, what do you say? Doesn't matter what you say. You're introducing them on their level, not too much, so that they hear there is something called mikveh, and you are going to love this. When you are ready to get married, you have to hear about this. And they're hearing it in C-Teen, even C-Kids, which is younger than that, and Bas Mitzvah Club, and Campus, and YJP. It's just they're hearing it over and over again. And yeah, hopefully they'll be curious to know, what is this?
Wonder, do you think it's ever appropriate for like a frum crowd, maybe older, maybe like, high school or post-high school, to ever tour mikvah? I never heard of that happening in a frum crowd.
I haven't, but we also didn't have bayis Yehudi classes in such young age. And now they're giving it in high school.
Really?
You know
What is
what?
a bayis class? I haven't even heard of that.
Maybe
What
it's
do
a
they
Chabad
teach?
thing. I don't know.
It's
Yes,
Chabad, because I haven't heard of it.
maybe they I know my daughter teaches it in high school. They do it in seminary as well, but it's these topics that they bring up. They bring it up now.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
I think
not
a lot of
everyone's
people would
going to be in
appreciate that.
seminary. Yeah, it's
I
discussed
definitely
already.
have heard.
Kids know everything much younger, and they're wondering, and that kid who's like thinking about things but doesn't have anyone to ask, and start to convince themselves something's, I'm not so frum because I'm thinking about. Let's talk about it. So it's being taught now in high school, yeah. What exactly is being taught? I'm not saying, everything, but the platform is there for the kids not to be afraid to ask.
Okay, when
It's
I was in, I
important.
think, 12th grade, I had a rabbi teaching us a halacha class. And I still remember he was talking about different kinds of mikvahos and what makes them kosher. And he was talking about a Kallah mikvah and a men's mikvah and a women's mikvah. And I will never forget a classmate of mine laughing hysterically, thinking our teacher is senile because what's he talking about a woman's mikvah? And I remember us in class just all turning to her like, because we didn't hear it at school. We all heard it from, I don't know where we heard it, probably, we weren't taught it, but we knew there was such a thing as a women's mikvah. But can you imagine, she was for sure not the only one, who had no idea what we were taking notes on. They just said, the
Yeah.
rabbi said it, it goes in my notebook. They had no idea. We were in 12th grade. So I thought that was interesting. Like, why was that the first time anyone ever heard of this concept? And it was a humorous story, and it was many years ago. It was a big grade, but I will never forget that moment. Because I'm like, who's going to tell her? None of us were going to be the ones to say anything.
Getting younger and younger, especially, kids of parents who run mikvahs. Your mother runs a mikvah and she has to go there at night and take care of the mikvah and replenish the mikvah. Kids hear everything. So as an elementary teacher, I remember a kid saying something about the ladies' mikvah, and another child says, "What? Only boys go. Only men go." And then they're having a discussion. No, ladies go. Mo, is it true? And I'm like, hey, Hashem, help me, because this is the first time. What do I say? And I'm like, yes, there are times that ladies go to the mikveh, and they have special mikvahs like Erev Yom Kippur and other times too. And I just left it at that because I wasn't totally not prepared. And I was even thankful that Hashem put those words into my mouth. But yeah, kids are
Beautiful.
hearing younger and younger, and there's no need to give them more information that they need to hear, but we want to normalize that. Yeah.
It's true. When I moved to Boston, like we had different friends over the years who like were very involved in the mikvah. And I've heard the language being used around the kids. Not that they interacted with the conversation, but to me, it was surprising that it was spoken about in more, like at the Shabbos table, like, oh, I had to go, like you said, restock, go do the night at the mikvah. And I remember thinking like, oh, people talk about this. Like I was also growing up, I guess a bit, when I moved to Boston, but that was also the first time I heard it very normalized around like a Shabbos
Yeah.
table. I didn't hear
Yeah.
that in Brooklyn, but I thought it was very important, and I wasn't opposed to it at all. I thought it was a nice way to like, it went over their heads just enough that like when it comes up in the future, maybe they'll recognize hearing about it. So I think that's
Right. So the same thing with people that grow up in a secular environment. You want them to hear it enough times growing up that they know, before I have my wedding, I got to hear what this mikveh thing is.
This episode is sponsored by Elemento Productions. Not only have a number of these podcast episodes been edited by Elemento Productions, but working with Kallah at Elemento Productions has been amazing. She is incredibly responsive and her work is amazing. You must check out elementoproductions.com to see a list of services and to check out some of her work. Anything from events, full-length documentaries, highlight reels, anniversaries, you name it. Elemento Productions brings in a qualified team of filmmakers and works with your project from start to finish. So if you're in the tri-state area, make sure Elemento Productions is on your speed dial list. Information is below.
thing that you hope all your Kallahs come away with after they learn.
Something that I hope they come away with. Everything I said, really?
Everything. It's just an opposite. Or in
Yeah.
general, closing remarks, because
Don't be
in
afraid.
general,
Yeah. Don't be afraid to try it. Don't be afraid to try it. I had a woman also many years ago who didn't have children. We should never know. And she decided that she heard about this mitzvah and she wants to try it. Completely not observant. There was only one problem. Her husband wouldn't hear of it. Would not hear of it. So we learned together, and I said to her, ask him for 1 month. and you know what you got to do. I said to her, guess what? He's like way ahead of her, in observance of everything. They're like, Baruch Hashem, have a beautiful family, completely from. It's like 1 month. Give me 1 month. This is important to me. Can we do 1 month? Yep.
I think there's so much packed into that whole thing. Like when one person is yearning, when they connect in a new way, when you bring Hashem, like it is so packed with like everything that can change their lives, really. It's just unbelievable. Like, and now they're from family. Unbelievable.
I do want to say something else. I hope it's okay.
Yeah, go
I
for it.
once gave a refresher class, and I said, this is a difficult mitzvah. And it's okay that it's difficult. So later, somebody, in a nice way, criticized me and says, why do you tell Kallahs and women that it's a difficult mitzvah? That's not encouraging them. And I said, I will never not be 100% honest. It is a difficult mitzvah. And if they know that I feel it's difficult, and I still see the beauty of it, and I still want to show them the beauty of it, they will trust me. If I don't say it's difficult and then they find it difficult, it's not going to make sense to them. She didn't say it was difficult. So yes, I will always be honest with them and real, and then rely on Hashem for the rest.
I wish that all the Kallahs that I teach come away with that this is the most beautiful mitzvah in the whole world, and that love and connection and togetherness should be their goal of their entire life. That they should know that before anything else, they come first. That's what the Torah tells us, to take care of themselves as a person, that a woman should be healthy and should be a mensch and take care of her emotional and physical needs, because if she doesn't, then she won't be able to be a wife or a mother. But the next thing that comes is her husband, that she should know that the most important relationship in her life is a relationship between her and her husband. And that relationship will over to her children, to her workmates, to her parents, to her friends, to her community, that the building block of every home is that relationship. There's a question asked, why can the Jewish people not be destroyed by one force? And the answer is because we're millions and millions of nuclei. What's the nuclei? Our families are our strength. Rabbi Abramov wrote a book, and she writes this in her book called Our Families Are Our Strength. And she writes that the reason why we can't be destroyed is because we're millions of nuclei. Who's the nuclei? The family, the husband and wife team. And that's the piece that I want given over to my Kallahs, that they should know that this relationship is the most important, that they should be happy emotionally and physically, and they should know that Hashem wants them to be happy emotionally and physically, that this relationship is so important, and that they should always know to come back to me and to ask me those questions, which most of my Kallahs do, and say, is this okay? Is this not okay? And that this is going to take time. This relationship will take time, but continue having fun, continue being feminine, continue laughing and being silly, and going out to eat once a week with your husband, even after you're married 25 and 35 years. Continue having fun together, because really that's the reason to get married.
Wow. I love that. I love that that's the goal of the Kallah teacher experience with you. That's really beautiful.
And then I think the other piece is that I focus so much on the intimacy piece, because it is a very big part of marriage, and I want them to be comfortable in that area. I could right away have a Kallah who says, I once had a Kallah that came to me and she said, I want you to know I am an amazing cook. I can cook like no one's business. The desserts I make, and she starts listing me all the desserts, better than the bakery. My ironing, I iron better than the dry cleaners. You should see what my tablecloths are going to look like. And she's going on and on and on. And I'm like, wow. And then she's telling me all the food. I said, wow, please bring something next time you come, please. I said, and, feel free on Shabbos to deliver whatever you want, She's going on and on. My mouth is watering. She goes, but I just want you to know. And I'm like, waiting, that I don't like to share my feelings. I just want you to know that. So I said, I'm so happy that you told that to me. That is really good information. And she goes, everything else, I'm going to be amazing. But my feelings, I'm very private and I don't really want to open up. That's not who I am. And again, I said, I'm so happy you told me that. So on normal call is 20 to 24 hours. You're going to need a minimum of 30 hours because you can't be married if you can't share yourself. That's not okay. So we're going to learn how to share yourself because you can't get married if you can't share yourself. I don't care how good your chocolate cake is. And I don't care how white your shirts come. And I don't care how good the creases are in the pants. You cannot be married if you can't share yourself. So, every Kallah needs something different. And every Kallah needs, a specific outlook of what they need to work on. So I think for me, I like to, get to know you. As a matter of fact, when I start with a Kallah, I always say we're not committing to each other until we have one session. Let's see if we get along. Like if the Kallah doesn't feel safe with me, be very open and then we'll find someone else and I'll help you find someone else. And vice versa. If I get a Kallah and I just see she's not interested in all my stories. So I'm not going to sit here and tell her stories for 20 hours. She just wants the halacha. So that's not me. I don't teach just halacha.
Right.
Every halacha comes with so much hashkafa. I don't want to waste my voice cords, on giving her all that hashkafa on every piece of halacha when she's black and white. So that Kallah is not for me. So yeah, I think that's very important also that if I want to leave one message, if any Kallahs are listening and any mommies, and I'm sure there's going to be plenty of mommies listening, I actually have a class on Torah Anytime. It's free. That's called How to Choose a Chassan/Kallah Teacher for Your Child. It's a very, very important class to listen to. But most important, I don't know if I said it on there, I recorded that class after we had 17 divorces in 2 weeks in the New York area. And I was so upset about it because people were coming to me privately, wanting to work with me, newly married couples, like 18, 19, 20-year-olds. And I said, what's going on? And then they were telling me what's going on, that they're afraid to go to work because another girl is getting separated. That so far they counted 17 separations. And they were so upset about it. When I asked them why they're getting separated, the answer wasn't a good answer. And the answer was pretty much that they don't like connection. And that made me hit the ceiling because that meant that none of them were taught properly. And so I came out with that little Torah Anytime thing. I was very upset. So the one message that I want to leave to the mothers that are listening, make sure when your daughter comes back for a Kallah class, and always set up with the Kallah teacher one lesson. Hi, I heard you're amazing. I don't know if you're amazing for my child. So I'm going to set up one lesson for my child, and I don't want to commit yet. I'll pay you for that one lesson. And when your daughter comes home, make sure that she comes home and says, I really like this Kallah teacher. I really feel like I can talk to her. I really feel like I can open up to her, because you want your daughter, if something does come around that is not normal, that in 6 months that she can call that Kallah teacher and say, my husband said or did, is that normal? If she doesn't feel like she can call her Kallah teacher, that's not good. You want that connection.
Right.
You want her to be able to call and to ask, because she may not specifically ask the mother because she's embarrassed to ask her mommy this situation. So she needs to have someone that she feels comfortable with. So the one thing that I really would love to leave people with is make sure your daughter is happy and she can bear her soul. It's the same with the therapist. When I send my girls to therapists, and when they come back, my Kallahs, and I say, did you feel you can bear your soul to her? And if they say no, I say, good, we'll find someone else. You have to be able to bear your soul and feel safe.
I think that we're just so not fluent in this vulnerable, connected, intimate space. And I think that's really what's happening here, is you have to really teach it. It's a skill. It's a language. So and it applies to
It
every
is a
aspect.
skill. Yeah, it is a skill and it is a language. And it's not something that somebody can get just from listening to a podcast or a Torah Anytime class or a Instagram post or, you asked me before what has changed. That changed. Women were willing to sit down and hear what you had to say. When we started Gateway seminars 32 years ago, when we started Gateways, well, let's say I learned 32 years ago. We started Gateways. I don't know. Maybe I started teaching for maybe 30 years ago, whatever it was. The first seminar started, if you can imagine, it was a Kratzmere weekend. We would start on a Thursday. Just imagine this. So Thursday, we had classes Thursday night, Friday, Shabbos, Sunday, we would end on a Monday morning. And people were interested. Secular people were interested. You understand? People sat and listened. They wanted to hear. They wanted to know. Now, a seminar, you're lucky if it's 24 hours. It starts Friday before the Zman and it ends Shabbos after the Zman, or maybe Sunday at 1 p.m., and many people don't stay. Any of these type of seminars, these growing seminars. They're not what they were. Kedev Tuni. I've spoken for them quite a few times. You know what that is? It's like a seminar for Hasidic people to bring them closer and opening. I mean, they're amazing. But again, they start Friday and they end on Sunday. I think it ends at 4 on Sunday. But most people are coming right before the Zman on Friday, like 90% of the people. And most people are leaving usually before lunch on Sunday. It's just not the way it was. People wanted to stay for 4 days. They wanted to immerse themselves in Torah and learning and all of that. That's what has changed. People just like, okay, just tell me what to do. Quick. Tell me, what do I need to do? Getting there. Yeah. Tell me what to do fast. And I don't know how to explain to a girl, that Kallah is the wrong Kallah for me, first of all. But sometimes I could sit with that Kallah and I could say, no, relationships are not quick. They're long. They're drawn out. There's conversation. There's thought. There's connection. And I think that the tremendous amount of we could do another podcast on addictions, but I'll tell you that we have so many addictions going on in the frum world right now. And I believe if you speak to addicts, they're very deep emotional human beings. They see the world in a lot of colors. And they're longing for deep connection that they don't have. And they're suffering so badly from not being able to have that connection that they turn to addictions because it's too painful to be in this world not connected. So we need to connect more. That's another message I want to give over. Connection. We need to connect to our spouse. We need to connect to our parents. We need to connect to our children. We need to connect to our grandparents. Family is...
This is the one issue I have with all the boundaries talk. I said what we're forgetting is that is putting up a lot of walls when it's used in the incorrect way. Because when you're putting up boundaries with your husband and your parents, sometimes obviously it's for safety, but sometimes it's really just because we're scared of that connection. And we don't want to deal with the uncomfortable conversations and the uncomfortable moments. And I don't know if that's not a popular opinion, but that's something I feel is also important for people to be open to, that the connection can be uncomfortable. But like you're saying, you can put through those conversations. That's what a relationship is. It's a long, you got a long time together. You got to give it the proper TLC and time and your own discomfort sometimes to like get to the other side of certain, things that need to be spoken about.
Yeah, you have to be able to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And that's something you can teach your kids now. Vulnerability, by us, saying, Mommy had a hard day today. This is what happened with Mommy. And sharing things that we can share, that are appropriate to share, whatever it was.
Yeah. I actually had, I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Rosmer, and he also came on the podcast. He's a known therapist who specializes in anxiety, and he happens to live in Boston. But
wow.
Yeah. So he sat and we talked about anxiety, and he was talking a lot about the same things you're saying, how important connection is and how without it, how that affects how we feel. And I feel like there's so much overlap. Like people go looking in so many directions, but when you go to the source, it all comes together. when you start from from the Torah right place, hopefully it'll cover all those aspects, the emotional and the physical and the halachic and this, every aspect that can like blend into work for you. That's what I'm
Yeah.
hearing
Yeah.
our
And we need
conversation.
time. Time. We need time.
We are teachers. We are not poskim. We are not rabbanim. We can guide. We can mentor. We can help. We are not there to paskin shilas.
Right.
And that is a really, really important thing that I want to mention is unless your Kallah teacher is a yoetzet halacha, which many yoetzet halachot today are Kallah teachers. And that is a wonderful thing, and it's a wonderful thing that they provide. But the majority of Kallah teachers out there cannot paskin halacha and need to turn to a Rav. So every Kallah teacher needs to have their Rav that they go to when they ask shilas, and every Kallah needs to have their Rav that they go to when they ask shilas. And especially for Balei Tshuva Kallahs, that idea is extremely, extremely daunting. The idea that you're taking something so personal, so intimate, so private, and now you have to go talk to a Rav about it. I talked to Kallahs who aren't even comfortable taking kashrus questions to a Rav. Like, that's
Really?
still so far beyond what they're comfortable doing. They feel embarrassed. They feel insecure. They feel like, I've been a balas tshuva for 10 years. I should know how to do that. That to take a badika cloth to a Rav? Are you kidding me? That's so uncomfortable. So a lot of it is also breaking the stigma and helping them understand that the Rabbanim, it's a professional thing. It's a professional thing, just like you go to see a doctor and they're a professional, just like you go to see an accountant and they're a professional, but it still feels extremely personal and it's still very hard. And so these are the things we're
Yeah.
dealing with.
Yeah, someone shared an interesting story. I might have told it to you at one point. I don't know if it was my college teacher or someone else, but around the time of 9/11, there was a story that I guess got passed around through the college teachers because it was just so helpful and like destigmatizing that whole Shyla, nerves. But when I guess it was around 9/11, there was a couple, and every time the wife had Shilohs, I guess the husband didn't feel comfortable bringing in the Shilohs, and he thought it was like such a weird thing, and she would have to go find her own Rav, and it was uncomfortable for her. And so that was just their dynamic. She kept having like hoping she didn't have Shilohs. And then during 9/11, I think her husband was one of the, I don't know if he was responder or if he was on the search team. I don't know what his profession was, but he was searching for remains. And he came home one day so excited because they were trying to find the remains for this woman, and they couldn't find proof or anything for the family because unfortunately it was just so much, destruction. And he said he was so excited because they found underwear with her DNA on it, and they were able to
Oh my
test it and
gosh.
locate and prove that she was there and that what they found was her DNA. And like aside from like the satisfaction and gratefulness that they had for that, the wife paused and said, remember that whole like stress we have about like this is the job. No, it's not their job. It's not appropriate. It doesn't feel comfortable. Like look at how excited you are to be able to help a family. And the DNA was something that could be so private, but this was like meaningful and important. And that story was passed around for Kallahs at least when I was learning,
Yeah,
and really helped put things in perspective of like we're doing this for a bigger reason and you want to do it right. All else can go to the side.
absolutely. And it's so hard. You having so much thrown at you. The majority of the Kallahs I teach are coming from non-cookie cutter backgrounds. They're balas chuvas. They might have been FFB who fell off the derech for a period of time and they're not sure. I mean, they're not sure what they want to do. Um, they're, everybody has a story. Every Kallah has a story. Baruch Hashem, I have not yet had a Kallah with any sort of trauma, but it's bound to happen. In the years to come, please God, I'll teach lots of Kallahs and that will probably come up. But you really there's so much to unpack there and there's so much stigma. And I'm not saying that we need to unmask the private. There is a lot about Taras Mishpacha that definitely stays private. It's not, your family life is not an open book for the entire world.
Right.
It's not. There's a certain amount of it that's gonna always stay private, but there's a certain amount that, like, schmoozing with your girlfriend, especially if you're fortunate, like, if you're fortunate to have, like, young married friends. I keep using the word young. It's not. If you're just fortunate to have married friends and you're like, something doesn't feel right, something's not right. Tova, you and I have been in those circles where we're sitting around with a bunch of girlfriends and somebody starts saying, oh my gosh, XYZ happened. What do I do? And
Right.
somebody else chimes in, oh, I had that issue. You called this Rav, and it's not as big of an issue as you think, and you're freaking out, and I totally understand, but I've already jumped off that bridge, right?
Wow. Yeah.
The other thing, the other thing we're really fortunate to have that our mothers and grandmothers didn't have is technology. We have so many answers at our fingertips.
Well, the
Shout out
app.
to Mikvah. I was going to say, shout out to Mikvah Calendar app.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
incredible. It's the one of the first things I show every Kallah because it takes a certain burden off of you. I remember sitting there with my college teacher in the paper calendar and trying to count out those vesatot, those intervals, and I like couldn't figure it out and I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't figure it out. And it wasn't until I took the college and I just relied on the app. I blatantly relied on the app for years, and it wasn't until I trained as a teacher and had to figure it out and had to be tested on it that I actually figured out how the counting works. I really didn't. And that was years later. And if I had to rely on a paper calendar, and to be perfectly honest, I took the test and it's kind of gone out of my head and I teach it and I have to relearn it every single time I teach it. And I rely on the app. But Baruch Hashem, we have the app, right?
Yeah.
And Baruch Hashem, we have kulas, we have leniencies that can help couples. The worst thing in the world is to feel like you're suffering in silence because we can't talk about these things. And to feel like, oh my gosh, my period is going on for weeks and weeks and weeks, and I can never get to the mikvah and this and that and the other thing. And I know lots of women, because they're afraid to talk up and to speak up about it, end up in these situations where they're not with their husband for way too long, when if they only felt comfortable enough to speak up, they would have found out that, oh, what the problem they thought was a problem isn't a problem, or that there's another way to do things, or that they're counting wrong, or that whatever it is, that there's a solution to their problem. So that's why I really believe that, like, as an educator, you have to maintain these relationships. I try to stay in touch with my colleagues as best I can. Now, I'm fortunate in that I don't teach a lot of colleagues. I know college teachers who are constantly teaching colleagues, one in, one out, one in, one out. They're not in a position, just like shadchanas, ladies do this for parnasa. It's a way people make parnasa, and they're not going to maintain those lifelong relationships. Now, some of these women are incredible, and they do. I moved to a new community recently, and all of a sudden, I had a Taras Mishpacha Shaila, and I'm like, I don't know who to call. I'm not going to call my Rav back in Boston while he's perfectly capable of answering like a generic Shaila. If I need to have something checked, I'm not going to like FedEx him an envelope with this. And so I messaged one of the moms I met and I was like, hey, if you have if you have a Taras Mishpacha Shaila, who do you go to? And she's like, oh, my college teacher lives here. I call her. I was like, great. I know who that is. If I need to call, I'll call. I also messaged another person and I was like, hey, who in the community answers these Shailas, who answers these questions? She sent me the name of the Rav. I was like, and his phone number. Great. Like that's all we need. That's what you need. Or at least that's what you need to get started. I shouldn't say that's what you need. That's what you need to get started. Now, maybe you'll go to that Rav and you'll ask him a Shaila, and it won't be a good fit. Like, he won't be able to speak to you in a way you can understand, or something else. And that's okay. I'm in Israel and there's a lot of Rabbanim and there's a lot of
Yeah.
people around. And sometimes you're in the middle of nowhere, and I have seen these situations come up where a woman is on vacation in Timbuktu and has a shaila that needs to be answered, and there's no Chabad for 250 miles. And even if they can get that shaila to that Rav, he may or may not be qualified to answer it. Now what are you going to do? But that's part of the craziness, but also the beauty of this mitzvah. And this mitzvah is so personal, and it can be such a challenge for ladies. And we really internalize it. And if you're not internalizing it, then you're not like, then are you really owning your mitzvah? Like, how many mitzvahs do we really have that are ours, right? How many times can we tell our husband to go away? This is my mitzvah. My message to new Kallahs is to ask every single question that comes to mind. Ask every single question, whether it's a question of clarification, whether it's a question of, halacha versus chumrah, whether it's a question of anatomy and physiology, whether it's a question of contraception. If it's a question that comes to your mind relating to your body, relating to this mitzvah, relating to getting married in general, one thing we haven't touched a lot on, but a lot of college teachers emphasize tips and tricks for shalom bayis in their classes.
Right, it's true.
It becomes a huge part of the curriculum. Whether or not it should be there, that's a whole nother discussion. But, you know, it whether it's shalom bayis related, you know, I think every Kallah, if you do not feel like you can ask any question that comes to your mind to your Kallah teacher, you are probably learning with the wrong lady.
Mm,
Now, it
well,
might be a personality situation. It might be you, that's not your personality. But if you can't ask her those questions, who are you asking your questions to? Because they
mm,
might not come up while you're taking classes. They might come up in the first, second, third, fourth week, month, and year of your marriage. But
yeah,
who is providing that eitzah for you? Who are you going to when you're stuck? Who are you going to when you're scared? Who are you going to when you need support? And
yeah,
it doesn't necessarily have to be your college teacher. It could be your mother. It could be your aunt. It could be your rebbitzin. It could be your teacher from seminary. It could be your neighbor. It doesn't matter.
that's
But you
actually very,
need
very important. Like I see a lot of, like you said, like people take this mitzvah almost like more, take it on much stronger than other mitzvahs that we have. And I just see like there's a lot of shame for some people.
a lot of
And if
shame.
they don't, yeah, if they don't have a college teacher that they can like open up, if there's a lot of shame and they don't have a college teacher that they can navigate with, it's going to come spilling out in inopportune times to the wrong people who can't get them help, and they're going to feel more isolated. And like, especially when once a couple's married also, I think that there's a new level of like uncertainty around what's allowed to be shared when you don't want to share someone else's stuff. So
Right.
that also can be like stressful for a new Kallah.
And also, it's there's almost no other mitzvah in our life that we have to take on so quickly as this,
Mm,
right? You go from 0 to 60. Like the only other time in our life where that really comes into play is bat mitzvah. When all of a sudden, like before we were bat mitzvah, like our averus were our parents, but then we become bat mitzvah and our averus are our own. Like, but come on, we've been spending our entire lives preparing for this. What other mitzvah are we taking on so rapidly that has so many technical aspects to it,
yeah.
right?
And
So
now there's so
if
much more exposure in the world too. So like people come in with
right,
different ideas, or one partner has more ideas and one has less. Like there's also this inequality sometimes, just in information.
absolutely. Absolutely. Access to information and experience. And unfortunately, I'm going to go there. I'm going to go there. Our shidduch system breeds secrecy. It
Right.
does. Our system, current as it speaks, breeds secrecy. So, to go along with the aspects of shame and whatnot, a lot of things don't come out until it's already too late and they've already been to the chuppah and there's already a signed ketubah, and that's it. And that's
Mm,
it. So, you need to have those people who are in your corner, who have your back,
yeah.
who can make sure that you have a positive experience. Because to me, the worst thing that can happen Mamish, the worst thing that can happen is a Kallah who only relates to Taharat HaMishpacha negatively. Only
Mm,
relates to it negatively. If they're only relating to it negatively and they can't find any way to relate to the mitzvah positively, the mitzvah is not going to hold in their life. It's not. Just like any other mitzvah. If you cannot relate to the mitzvah positively, you're not going to do it. You're just
so let
not.
me ask you this. What would you want your Kallahs to come away with?
I want my Kallahs to come away with a sense that knowledge is power, that the more you know, the more you can advocate for yourself. I want my Kallahs to come away knowing that I will always be in their court and I will always be their advocate.
Oh,
And I want my Kallahs to come away with a sense of empowerment of this mitzvah. That this is a beautiful mitzvah that will enhance their life. It will enhance their marriage. They may not relate or love every aspect of it all the time, but that the overall mitzvah is a positive in their world.
that's
That
powerful right there. That's powerful right there. Yeah.
because it's so special. And for women who are waiting to get married for a very long time, I, Baruch Hashem, was blessed to get married at 30. It felt like a million years while I was waiting. Baruch Hashem, I have a very, very close friend who's getting married for the first time in her 40s, and I am so excited to dance at her wedding. It's going to be a thrill of a lifetime for me. Um, and I get emotional thinking about it. A woman who's getting married for the first time, and please God, it should only be the first time, in her early 20s, has not had the time to think about how excited she is to perform this mitzvah. One of the things I talk about with Kallahs is covering their hair. You're a sheitel macher, you're dealing with this also. And I know so many women for whom covering their hair is such a hard mitzvah. And I remember taking a walk with a friend one Shabbos afternoon. She was married. I think I was engaged or not yet engaged at the time. It was around the time I got engaged. And she was talking about how hard the mitzvah of covering her hair was, that she had basically decided that she wasn't going to do it anymore, but she kind of hadn't figured out how she was going to back out of it and whatnot. And I was sad. I was extremely sad. And I didn't know how to talk to her about it at the time. And I was sitting there being like, I am so excited about this mitzvah. I have been waiting so long to do this mitzvah. I wish we would all look forward to building the Beis HaMikdash as much as I was looking forward to covering my hair when I got married. You know?
Wow.
But part of waiting and yearning for something is creating that positive anticipation towards it. She never had the opportunity to have positive anticipation. It was just something she did. Somebody quoted this past Shabbos, a Rav. My husband quotes this line all the time. FFH, from habit, right? How many mitzvos do we do that we genuinely think about why we're doing them, think about why we want to do them, and do them with love and reverence for the mitzvah? Now, do I think about that every single morning when I put on whatever I put on my head? Absolutely not. But when I'm talking to a Kallah, that's the kind of energy I need to bring to the conversation. And I recognize that and I know that. And that's the kind of energy I need to bring to the conversation about Taharat Mishpacha every single time we talk about it. Now, personally, do I have that energy every single month? Gosh, no. I wish I did. But I don't because it's hard. Because when you're trying to get ready for the mikvah, and I have 3 kids under 4 years old, it's a chore. It's not fun, especially when mikvah time is at bedtime, and you're figuring, you're
It's
oh my
also
gosh, she
Sarah.
is at this time and my
Yeah,
husband needs to go to mincha and I need to take a bath. No, at this
right.
stage of my life, it's really, really hard. But
And
for a
that's why you
Kallah,
need to
they're not
go
going to
into
have that for
it.
a
Yeah.
while.
Yeah.
What?
That's why you need to go into it with the good Kallah teacher, with the good
Exactly.
energy. because that sets you up, like you're saying, from habit. I love that. It's like I tell people the schar mitzvah, the lifestyle that performing these mitzvahs, the community it leads us to, it just enhances our lives. If you want to nitpick at each little tiny thing, you might not find it. But if you take a step back and you look at the life you're building with it, I think it's a very beautiful thing.
We're in the process. I mean, you can literally see moving boxes behind me. We're in the process of setting up our new home. Do you know what's like the center of like my decor? The center, like it's upsetting me as I look at it right now. The center of my decor was supposed to be my Shabbos candles. Like we had this whole plan of where I was going to put my Shabbos candles and this and that and the other thing. And then we got in and we're like arranging furniture and it didn't work out the way I'd like envisioned in my head. And I'm still mourning that. But like when I go to light my Shabbos candles this week, I'm not going to be thinking about that. I'm going to be thinking about, oh my gosh, I'm so lucky. I'm lighting my Shabbos candles in my home. That's like I'm bringing in the kedusha. Like that's what I want to be thinking of. Now I'm talking about that today on Monday. I can almost guarantee you at least one, if not more than one of my children will be screaming bloody murder when I'm lighting my Shabbos candles. But Baruch Hashem, we're like, it's one day at a time and one step at a time. So if on Monday, I'm already thinking about lighting my Shabbos candles, like B'davka on Tuesday, I also want to be thinking about lighting my Shabbos candles. And on Wednesday, I want to think about lighting my Shabbos candles. You know, one of the hardest things about Taras Mishpacha as a mitzvah is it's a mitzvah we are doing every single day. Do you realize that? It is a mitzvah we have to do every single day. We need to know where we are in our cycle. We need to know where we are in our counting. You know, when we're doing our Sheva Nikim, the text says usfartem. It uses the same language as Sfiras HaOmer. So you are supposed to be counting those days the same way you would count Sfiras HaOmer. Today is day 1. Today is day 2. It is a mitzvah every single day of your life. And then you talk to a woman who goes to the mikveh for the very last time, right? And most women don't actually know when they're going to go to the mikveh for the last time. It just kind of happens. And you talk to women who are in their 40s and 50s and 60s who've gone to the mikveh for the last time, and they talk about missing it the same way they talk about cleaning up after toddlers, right? You know, when you're in the middle of it, it is hard and it can be miserable. Hi, I do it every single day. It's hard. And if I have to pick up one more cucumber off the floor today, I'll probably scream. But I know one day, please God, my children are going to be grown and I'm going to miss picking cucumbers up off the floor. And one day I'm not going to go to the mikvah again and I'm not going to have to count again. And this mitzvah is going to be gone from me, right? And that's going to be it. This mitzvah, it's time bound. It's time bound. You only go to the mikvah for so many years of your life. You know, this Kallah who's getting married for the first time in her 40s is probably only going to go to the mikvah once. You know, she might only go to the mikvah for her wedding. And like, that's a little sad. She lost, like, she was not able to fulfill this mitzvah for so many years. And I feel for her, you know, but that was her tafkid in this world. That was her tafkid in this world. And our tafkid in this world right now, as mothers and as women, is to participate in this mitzvah. And it's hard. And I definitely emphasize that with my kallahs. I don't negate the fact that it's hard. And that's something I think I would also tell kallah teachers. Please don't negate the fact that it's hard. Own it. Talk to them about it. Strategize with them.
Had friends call and they say like they feel horrible that they experience it as challenging sometimes, or
Mm-hmm.
if there are elements that they find particularly uncomfortable, they feel so guilty because it was never validated that it's
Right.
sometimes really difficult, especially if something happened between you and your husband, or if just certain elements of it are uncomfortable for you. Or what about people who just don't like taking baths, like they're like feel this guilt of like, why am I not like everyone else? And it's like, no, it actually is just hard sometimes, or parts of it are hard sometimes.
Parts of it are hard sometimes. I had to go to the mikvah on Erev Shabbos or Erev Yontif for 6 months straight. Do you know how hard, like that was so hard for me. So
I
hard. Because
know.
I
People
don't
have
have
been
enough to do needing to make Shabbos or make Yantif. And now I have to find somebody to come watch my kids because my husband's at shul and I have to walk across town. Now, Baruch Hashem, when we were living in Boston, I lived a very good walk to the mikveh. Like I had a very easy walk to our mikveh in Boston. I remember when I was training, the woman who was teaching the class, we were talking about going to the mikvah on Shabbos or Yontif, and the differences about how that happens in America versus in Israel. And she asked me, she's like, so like if you have to go to the mikvah on Shabbos, how far is it from you? And I was like, well, I'm lucky. It's about a 15-minute walk. It's a very easy walk for me. But I know plenty of people who have to walk 45 minutes, an hour in order to go to the mikvah on Shabbos or Yontif, or they have to make other plans, or they have to do this. Like, and she was like, yeah, that's what it is to live out of town in America. And then she was telling us about how in Efrat, in a city in Israel, that one of the local mikvahs was being renovated, I think. So they let the ladies from that neighborhood go to another neighborhood mikvah, like a mikvah in another neighborhood during the day on Friday, which in Israel, women, including Kallahs, are not allowed to go to the mikvah during the day. That's like that is part of the Rabbanut. Rabbanut mikvahs are not allowed to open during the day. Kallahs all go to the mikvah at night. Versus if you live in America or most other countries outside of Israel, Kallahs tend to go to the mikvah during the day. Because as a Kallah, that's the only time you can go to the mikvah during the day. Fine. So they were allowed to go Friday afternoon, right before Shkia, to this other mikvah so that they could drive back and forth. She's like, yeah, for most of those women to walk to that other mikvah would be no more than 25 minutes. And my jaw was on the floor. I was like, are you kidding me? Are you freaking kidding me? I have
They couldn't
friends
walk
who walk,
25 minutes.
they can't walk 25 minutes on Erev Shabbos. What else are they doing?
But when you get used to having everything right there, like a minute, even growing up in Brooklyn, we had 4 shuls within 2 minutes, not even 2 minutes.
Right.
So who's
Right.
walking 15 minutes to shul?
Who's walking 15 minutes to shul? Who's walking 25 minutes to get to the mikvah on Erev Shabbos?
Right.
Chas v'shalom, you should do that. And I'm like,
Right.
and it's funny, we live in a smaller community, and as far as I know, and I have not done all of the research yet, there's only one mikvah here, and it's going to be a solid 20-minute walk for me to get there if I have to go on Erev Shabbos or Erev Yontif, and I'll do it because that's what you have to do. Will it be fun and pleasurable? Guess what? It's uphill the whole way. It's going to be awesome, but like you do what you need to do.
Yeah.
But
Like there's so
but
many
this
elements.
is like if you can't come at this with a little bit of humor and a little bit of fun and excitement, then what are you doing? Just like any other mitzvah.
Yeah,
So
I love that. I love that. Thank you so, so much for joining me and doing this. I
Thank you,
appreciate it.
Tova, for asking me and for bringing this to world.
Yeah. It's gonna be, I mean, Mirza Hashem, everyone who's viewing will be very appreciative.
I love what you're doing. That's a last thought. I think this is so nice. So I want to thank you for inviting me on and for this thought-provoking conversation and for being a voice of reason and a voice that's actually taking the time to discuss these things because you're a role model for so many people. You're a role model for your family and for your children and for those people that are listening to you. You're a real role model. And the fact that you're not, doing a 1-2 and you're taking the time to have meaningful discussions is very, very beautiful. And so my last thought is that people should surround themselves with people like you that are actually taking the time to have a meaningful, real discussion about a topic instead of just going, let me just post something.
Yeah.
So we need more of this. And yeah, and these type of conversations I'll do all day and all night because,
Yeah.
you can really get something from it. You can really talk to someone and have a meaningful conversation. And it really is modeling for everyone that's watching that this is what needs to be done. Just not a quick, question. We need to delve into a topic a little bit. And this was probably the tip of the iceberg.
Mirza Shem, I'll get all the links from you. I want to link everything that we talked about, the courses and all the different resources that we talked about. I'd love to link it below so that anyone who wants to follow up and either call in or, schedule their own session, they can all figure out how to reach you. So thank you
Okay,
so much for
amazing.
coming on. I love this
You're
conversation.
amazing.
One of my favorite topics. I find that there's so many people who are trying to figure out how to get information that's really so available if they go to the right places. So thank you. Thank you for that. And
My
it'll be a real
pleasure.
nechama and a real exciting open conversation for so many people to be able to go back and listen to. So thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much for coming on here and
My
sharing all
pleasure.
this.
Thank you for having me.
It's going to be very enlightening for a lot of people who, like you said, feel like they're alone in the mitzvah. I think it's going to be really, really comforting to have it laid out like this. So I really appreciate you joining
Absolutely.
me all the way from
Thank you
Israel.
so much. All the way from Israel. I'm still teaching Kallahs. I'm constantly taking students. All right. Thanks, Tova.